Call this meeting to order and all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So to get started, we need a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
I second the motion.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. And moving on, do we have any public comments to agenda items? Make any comments? Correspondence to the board? From the Ford family, we say thank you very much. May God bless you. From the Golden Valley Memorial says thank you for your generous donation to the Golden Valley Memorial Healthcare during the COVID-19 pandemic. We truly appreciate your support. And from the Non-Nostra Ministerial Alliance, on behalf of the Kenyan Ministerial Alliance, I thank you very much for your monetary donation to the Kenyan Community Food Pantry. Your support is appreciated a lot. With this donation, we are able to keep struggling families in perishable food items such as milk, bread, eggs, margarine, meat, and many other non-perishable food items. Non Nostra is a wonderful community of people who like to help the low-income families of their hometown. Again, thank you for your generosity. God bless.
I do want to add on that last thank you that several of our buildings have completed charitable donation drives, and that was the way in which those funds were directed to try to help out local families.
Thank you. Moving on to recognitions.
So we have no recognitions this month. We actually pushed those to the home.
Moving on to the principal and director reports. Does anybody have any questions, comments on the two reports? I think we're ready for the next meeting.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Missouri School Boards Association's board report for the month of July. We thank you for the opportunity to share some news and information during a few minutes of your board meeting. We begin with a look at the challenging task of reopening school buildings in Missouri. School districts throughout the state are developing and implementing plans to reopen schools after they were closed for much of the spring as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. Those plans vary considerably throughout the state depending on local circumstances. The executive director of the Missouri chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics, Kelsey Thompson, says in addition to health and safety concerns, it's important for schools to prepare for the emotional issues students may be facing as they return to school.
Be prepared to be able to recognize some of those signs of depression, especially in teens and older children, but just also recognizing that the transition back to school could be difficult for some children, experiencing anxiety from what has happened and what they've been children to be able to talk about their feelings and emotions.
Thompson made her comments during a panel discussion at MSBA's Igniting Great Ideas Summit that was held virtually on June 19th. MSBA continues to update its pandemic recovery considerations document that includes information on a wide range of issues related to the reopening of schools. That document is posted on the MSBA website. Another session at the summit focused on the homework gap, an issue that's been apparent for quite some time, but that has become more urgent as schools have turned to virtual instruction while school buildings have been closed. More than 20% of Missouri's public school students do not have adequate internet access at home, according to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. A member of the Federal Communications Commission, Jessica Rosenworcel, participated in a discussion of the homework gap during the Igniting Great Ideas Summit, and she believes the federal government's E-rate program should be updated to ensure every student has adequate internet access at home.
And I hope that this crisis, something comes out of it, which is we decide it's a national objective to close the homework gap, that every child should be connected at home. You know, it was used to be leave no child behind, now I'm leave no child offline. Every kid should be connected at home. And I'm actually a little bit hopeful that we're going to walk out of this crisis and recognize that that is a national necessity.
Another participant in that discussion was Dr. Nicole Turner-Lee, a researcher with the Brookings Institution and an expert on the digital divide. She says schools should consider what she calls a remote access plan for students.
I'm suggesting to all of you, let's create digital parks. Let's find a way in the discussion around reopening to create Wi-Fi hotspots in and around the school so that kids can do their homework and particularly if they're left behind. Or find a local church or some other aspect of your digital community, in your community. Become empowered and involved enough to help your community. I guess my question is, as we go forward, if schools are not thinking about that remote access part, we're going to find ourselves back in conversation. And I think that's where none of us really want to be. We want so much time in the classroom.
The new president of the Missouri School Boards Association is Linda Doherty, a school board member from Nixon. She became MSBA president following the Igniting Great Ideas Summit, having served as president-elect for the past year. During her remarks at the virtual delegate assembly held in conjunction with the summit, she said strong school board leadership continues to be essential for the success of Missouri's public schools.
As school board members, we are governors and visionaries. Our students are counting on our leadership to put them first, to make hard decisions that will continue the legacy of strong public schools, where every child in our community and our state receives an excellent education for an extraordinary life.
Other state officers for the next year elected at the delegate assembly are President-elect Nancy Masterson of the Camden Board of Education and Vice President John Craig of the Crawford County R1 Board of Education. Rhonda Gilstrap of Blue Springs served as MSBA president for the past year and now becomes immediate past president. The Delegate Assembly also approved a change in MSBA's purpose statement at its virtual meeting on June 19th. The purpose statement now reads, helping school boards ensure all students succeed. Plans continue for the 2020 MSBA Annual Conference in cooperation with the Missouri Association of School Administrators to be held September 24th through 27th in Kansas City. The event will once again feature numerous sessions and workshops, many presented by school leaders from districts throughout the state, all in the new location at the Kansas City Convention Center. Registration for the 2020 Annual Conference opened on the MSBA website on June 1st. And don't forget the 2020 Safe Schools and Colleges Forum, sponsored by MSBA Center for Education Safety, will be held this year in conjunction with the annual conference in Kansas City. That's it for this month's edition of the MSBA Board Report. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and so long from Columbia.
Now we'll move on to the superintendent report.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for our guests in the audience for joining us this evening. Just a couple of follow-up comments before I get into my report from the MSBA report. I do want to say thank you again to Mr. Davis and his team for the good job they're doing over the summer. I know at the last meeting I reported that we had received our new student devices in and have those images getting ready to go. And at this meeting, I'm pleased to report that we received our updated employee laptops. Again, you guys, the board received those as well. So those should work very well for you and for our employees to make sure that we have the tools we need to stay connected. So thank you to Mr. Davis and team for getting those ready to go in the instance that we shut down. Those will come into great use. Also, a portion of that MSBA report was focused on the remote access to ensure equitable access across our district for all students. And we think we did that pretty well during that fourth quarter with the deployment of hotspots out into our community. We were able to survey our families and respond to 100% of those needs with those mobile hotspots. As we move forward, I think the key will be how we balance out. We did have some parents who kind of got into the conversation about data caps and expense if they went over their plan that was already in place, and that's something that we want to continue to vet. Kind of a slippery slope there, and we'll need some parameters moving forward, but at the end of the day, we will find a way to ensure that we continue to provide access to 100% of our students should we go through another shutdown. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into our COVID response plan. The summer is moving by very swiftly. A number of projects are taking place throughout the district as we wind down and gear up for next year. Over the last month, we completed special board meetings, including the budget work session, the special meeting for the high school innovation campus review and approval. Both went very well, and we look forward to the upcoming year with optimism. I want to say thank you to our board for the additional time spent over the last month. Our Defense Communities Infrastructure Program funding request was submitted on June 26th, and we look forward to the response from the Office of Economic Adjustment. We've heard a little bit of information on that. It's been somewhat tight-lipped, but we know that they received around 100 proposals. There was not a funding amount request that has been released yet, but we do know that there were about 100 proposals, and we also know that there's a target date in early August where they will be moving on those finalists into that grant submission process. So we remain optimistic about our opportunities, and we continue to work for advocacy to make sure that we can get as much goodwill and good comments shared with decision makers regarding what we have proposed. With those projects completed, our team moved into July focusing on completion of our first Impact 8 field monitoring exercise in at least 6 years. Overall, the process went very well, and unlike some exercises that we go through in the district, this one proved to be pretty valuable, and it was a good learning experience for us as we move forward. So we have not heard back from them, but I look forward to that review, the response, and moving forward to apply what is learned to what we do with our Impact 8 applications moving forward. We're now shifting focus to our return to school plans for the fall. While we are moving forward with our typical functions with the best intentions for a normal year, we know that it's going to be highly unlikely that it will go down as normal. Accordingly, we are working to complete a comprehensive COVID-19 response and return to school plan to guide us through anticipated scenarios. We've taken some initial steps early to prepare for this response plan, and we'll now shift to the details and logistics. Moving on, below are the attendance numbers for summer school 2020. Overall, we ran decently with numbers coming in around 30% below what we saw over the last couple of years. So we were we were overall pretty pleased with that turnout, knowing that COVID definitely took a toll during that fourth quarter. The numbers are listed there in the chart. We did not, since we were virtual for summer school, we will calculate that at 94%. We continue to finalize and wrap up the fiscal year 2020. Below are the initial final numbers. Our expenditures ran about 1.5% above budget, and our revenues came in at 115% of anticipated. Cumulatively, we increased fund balances by nearly $3 million this year to just over $18 million. We will do some final adjustments, and Mrs. Miller has been working tirelessly to get that finalized and in front of the board. We will have that for the August meeting, and also we'll have initial feedback from our auditors at that time. So as we wrap out that year, we do normally see some minor details and tweaks as we wrap up the books. And that concludes my report.
Anybody have any questions, comments? Thank you, Dr. Weaver.
Thank you.
Moving on to the consent agenda. Anybody have any questions, comments? If not, we need a motion.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. On the new business. Any questions on the bills? If no questions, need a motion to approve the bills as presented.
Motion to approve the bill as presented. I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Next agenda item is the tax rate hearing next month.
Not a lot to share here. This is just a procedural item to set the public tax rate hearing. Typically, we run that at 5:40 p.m. just ahead of our regular meeting. We have that set for Wednesday, August 26th. Also notable here, we typically move that back to the last Wednesday in the month to provide some additional time for those members to come in. So I am proposing that accordingly.
We'll have to send out a reminder to make sure we'll get here.
Will do.
Coordinate that.
Okay. And that is one thing we typically don't have, or we haven't at my time here had much public attendance at that tax rate hearing, but it's a pretty good opportunity for our public to see kind of what's been going on in our district. We include a couple of financial components to show trend history on revenue, expenditures, and fund balances. And we also do that comparative slide to about 20 other local districts and demonstrate that compared to the surrounding region, Valdosta's tax levy is second from the bottom. So there's one more that's lower. Meanwhile, we're continuing to show some of the strongest academic achievement in the region. So it's a good opportunity to demonstrate the return on investment for our taxpayers. So if you know anyone that wants to come on a nice date, like Mr. and Mrs. Callis this evening, feel free to invite them in. And that is an action.
Good.
Make a motion to set the date for the August 12th. Yeah.
I second.
Good. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Moving on to the Panther Stadium results.
I know last year the GMAX test was a point of discussion with the board. So this year we provided that just for information only. Generally, what the board would want to be aware of is that the field tested within parameters on all areas. We did do a grooming and kind of a maintenance on the field, which leveled out some of the areas that tested extremely well and kind of balanced that out with some of the lower areas. So overall, our GMAX test this year is better than it was last year. And we're definitely in good shape to carry through this season and, if needed, carry forward after that. We know that field has been down and still plays okay, but it certainly is nearing the end of life, and we're aware of that. And hopefully here in 6 or 8 weeks we'll know a little bit more where we can decide what we want to do with Panther Stadium. And that's under our action.
Any other questions? Now we'll move on to the new high school course offerings.
As the board is aware, and I want to again say thank you for your support in expanding our business program for our middle school and high school this year. With the retirement of Mrs. Allen, who's done a fantastic job in that program. We will be splitting that into 2 FTEs, allowing us to push business into our middle school. Along with that, we're proposing a couple of new course items, course offerings, one in broadcast, one in sports and entertainment marketing, which aligns to the background of one of our new instructors. We also have a freshman academy, which will in part take place of the Panther Hour to help transition our freshmen into high school and then towards their career pathways. And this is an action item.
Second it?
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Next item on the agenda is the high school barbecue club.
Okay, so this is on the agenda for the request of one of our board members, and I think, as I said in my memo to the board, this is an idea that could really catch fire for the students. I don't know, nobody commented on that for its sense of humor, so I don't know if I'm just not funny or if you guys aren't reading my memos. But this is something that was a new concept to me. I've heard everything from bass fishing to the esports that are really popular across our country. But this is a barbecue competition where you have high school teams that will get together and compete. Certainly crosses over along the culinary side, maybe family and consumer sciences, as well as some of our engineering and construction classes. So I see some good merit here, and certainly here outside of Kansas City and locally with the events that we all know about, this seems like something that would have a good sense of place here. As I understand it from Mr. Everts, there are about 100 school districts that competed in Texas last year. So it's something that I wanted to put in front of the board for discussion, feedback. Since we are short on our agenda tonight, I'll go ahead and share this video so you guys can kind of get an overview of what this looks like.
Well, in that video, from school teams to theater production, that's a full extracurricular activities for students to pursue. But one after-school program you may not know about is growing in popularity. It involves varsity teams competing not on the gridiron, but over the grill iron. Maria Villarreal has the story.
What's that supposed to be for us?
Chef Mike Erickson is using barbecue to teach some big life lessons in this small Texas town.
Are we done developing flavor? No, because we still have enough fire heat.
At Vernon High School, students cook in a state-of-the-art kitchen worth $250,000 to create what some would consider Holy grail of Texas grilling.
You don't have to be the biggest kid. You don't have to be the smartest kid. You don't have to be the richest kid. And you can go to the Houston Livestock Rodeo and watch the championship. And then for some young people, that's great.
This will be the competition style, look.
Everyone in here is part of the Underdogs, a high school varsity barbecue team. They won the regional championship last year.
Here in Texas, everybody always says football is king, but barbecue is pretty high up there. And so what's the level of respect that you get when you guys walk around as a barbecue team?
The reaction that I most often get is, we have a barbecue team? Yeah.
In just 3 years, the number of varsity teams across Texas has grown to 102. Dishes like brisket, ribs, and beans are judged on taste, texture, and presentation. And the competition is as hot as their grills. The team placed 11th at their annual statewide tournament after doing practice runs like this all year long.
This is really good, and yeah, really juicy. What makes the perfect rib for you?
I mean, flavor's big, but the texture of it, if it's like rubbery, so big, no.
For you, is it just about barbecue, or is it a little bit deeper than that?
I enjoy our teamwork and the stuff that we do as a barbecue team. It's a lot of fun. I get the same feel as with football. The difference is it's more personal.
And most of this team is made up of seniors planning to attend different colleges. So right now, they're savoring every moment together.
For CBS this morning Saturday, they have that now?
We're in Texas.
More person. I love that. Yeah. Football and barbecue in Texas.
Why not?
What can you ask for? I love
the motto here, come eat our homework.
Done.
Okay, so just wanted to open that up for any additional comments. It's not an action item tonight, not that it can't be, but on the introduction of a new activity like that, so I wanted to do a first read and give the board opportunity to try any feedback or over the next month, give any guidance.
What would be the initial cost for something like that?
Yeah. I don't know yet. I don't know enough to comment, and it would probably, that's where I'm hoping that I might get some guidance from the board. Obviously, the consumables would, that would be a consideration. I don't know that initial startup would be that astronomical compared to some of the other things that we started over the last couple of years. And then it would depend on how we frame it. If students are actually engaged in construction trades to build their own smokers, and I also feel like with us being one of the first in Missouri to do this, as I understand it, we might have an opportunity to get some corporate engagement early to try to get them set up. So don't have those numbers. I think it would be pretty modest. Depending on the travel, if we have to go to Texas and do a couple minutes there would be some travel involved.
I guess it seems to me like it's a good idea, and I like the fact that other schools are doing it, but there probably needs to be some legwork on looking at possible sponsors or somebody who could help us, look at what the overall cost is, how we would get a kitchen or whatever facilities we would need to work with. And then, transportation, barbecue, grills, equipment, all that stuff. I don't know how that would work. I mean, I know throwing a smoker from here to Mesa for out to take forever to 2 miles, but transporting us from community to community. I mean, I know you can transport robotics equipment, so I'm guessing there'd be something wrong with that.
Correct. We'll look into that and see where we want to try to land this if we move forward as well. We landed our shooting club with our ag program. This one probably lends itself to a couple of different options.
Do we know of any local schools or Missouri schools that Missouri schools?
I thought I know that Is there any way we can maybe reach out to one of those schools in Texas and ask them what it possibly costs to start something like that up?
And a lot of the schools said that decided to do it, a lot of that borrowed. But they, a lot of them do that, a lot of them do sponsors, do their stuff, their sponsors, or, a lot of them,
It's not like Mr. Everett's gonna donate his smoke.
Get a motion on that?
I know this might be a silly question, but is there scholarships that can be involved with this that kids could earn?
I don't know, I thought that was next year, I think it's the third year. I don't know, I'm sure I don't know. It's possible.
Do any of these schools sell off any of this barbecue that don't pay any type of money? I don't know. I know this company having problem people showing up to eat.
I'd buy some every third Wednesday of the month. I think we need to answer a lot of those questions. I did just really want to get it out in front of the board, and I'm not even sure when the competition runs. I did look into that as well. So it's a spring comp. We'll look at that, and if you guys have any other thoughts, let us know. I think it's Miller School District down outside of Springfield actually has through their ag program, has a nice meat processing facility there inside their school, and that would be a place where it would make a lot of sense to be able to take those raw products and build this program. So it might be an opportunity to do a interscholastic partnership with a school that has a program like that, where we could source meat and have a little value there too. If you guys think of anything, feel free to reach out and let me know. We'll continue to take a look at this.
Well, it sounds like there is at least the curiosity through the board, and they presented several questions for consideration. I don't think it, unless we have overwhelmingly opposition to this, I think it's something that we definitely want you to look into and get some specifics and bring that back. Whether that's next month or either a couple months.
Okay.
So I think that's what I heard. Consensus throughout the board. So
Will do.
I do appreciate you bringing this information forward to me, because I was unaware that that's what we had. Barbecue competition.
As long as we can stay in the barbecue lane and keep it focused, I think we'll be all right.
yeah, I think depending on the season, that's one thing I think the school getting ready to start, seeing if there's interest within the kids and things like that. Didn't look like they were huge groups, but it's kind of an intimate process. It could be scaled too. Several things to look at and come back to.
I'd suggest if I could, maybe reach out to these schools that have a program down in Texas and ask what is the ultimate aim of the state for having this program. Is it just to have a club? Is the state able to push kids towards culinary arts? Is it a mix of pushing culinary arts and, metalwork? I don't know. But to get that in-state money, work backwards from that, and I think that would really help you flush out the whys and the hows. That would allow you to justify what the sponsors, we're driving our students towards culinary arts or towards something in the meat industry. I think that would help drive it.
Yes, sir. Good input.
All right. Well, again, I just wanted to kind of get that out first taste and overview, and we will keep Should be trying. And, we'll get to some of the more, specific details on that.
Moving on to our next agenda item for the qualifications for the CMR, CMA, or actress.
So we talked our last special meeting a little bit about the construction manager at risk process. There are a variety of ways that you can approach the construction process where it's at risk or just straight construction management. We also have design build options. And just wanted to get this out in front of the board for initial feedback. I was able to add today this document which provides some additional information on delivery methods for construction. 96% is showing have the construction management approach. Goes on to talk a little bit about which method is best for our project and kind of does a side by side.
Who's putting this?
This actually came from McAllen Gordon. Just randomly received a follow-up from one of their representatives that I've worked with in the past and asked for this and kind of provided that. So it gave a kind of a good side-by-side comparison on those two. It does not include a comparison of my design build, but I'll try to get that as well. The approaches seem to have pros and cons in each delivery method. Certainly is not my expertise on the details, but we could definitely get some resources in front of the board to help us make a decision on that. I know CMAR came up in the discussion as a preferred method. I've talked to a project management firm who suggest early on that either works, but construction management should not be in his opinion off the table either. So if the board wants to look through that again, I apologize for the lateness and getting that on here, but we do have that side by side. And then I've also provided, when this was originally sent out, reference to the policy FBB, which provides guidance on selection of the construction manager at risk, as well as what that process would look like. And the draft RFQ, as I understand it, no matter what delivery method we go through, we will procure, we'll go through some type of qualification procurement process. And remember, this qualification is request for qualification is different than request for proposal. This process identifies the qualifications we're looking for in that service provider, and then once we select based on qualification, we can negotiate price, which is what we did when we selected our architects back several years ago.
So to kind of summarize, what we're doing here is that when you have a project of considerable size, where we're kind of looking forward to, there are many options on your delivery option, the delivery method. And all of these things are basically considered delivery methods on a project. And so this is the introduction to a lot more information to come that the board will have to weigh pending a project. We'll have to make decisions on when we come to that fork in the road, which delivery method we choose. And so this is an icebreaker to get the board thinking of the different pros and cons for each one of these. So we will, in discussions that Dr. Wheeler and I have had, we'll have to come to bring more information to the board so we can make an informed decision. And there's the niche of schools and what's what's been working and what kind of climate we have nowadays. And those are all things that need to come together in order to make a decision on this. So, any more to add?
The only thing that I would add related to this item is the discussion of our project manager. And we are working to procure kind of an RFQ there as well, which frankly might precede what we do on this item. So sounds like, I know we talked pretty extensively about that project manager. We had a good discussion yesterday on next steps on that, but definitely keep that in mind too, and think about engaging, or I would encourage the board, if we want to invest in this position, then we think about getting that person engaged early on. As a project manager, owner of agent, quality assurance personnel throughout the project. I don't know, I'll reference policy on my next communication. I don't know on a service like that if it absolutely requires an RFQ, or if we can do that underneath another policy for professional services, but I'll let the board know on that, on what our options are.
I think some of that's going to depend on whether we, who holds the employment of that, whether we're buying services from a firm or we actually employ an employee to do those services. So,
got it.
Dr. Wheeler, is there one over the other that you prefer?
No, not at this time. Again, I think as President Bolton suggested, I think we need to frame up a little bit more about our project and then decide. They all, as I said earlier, they do all have some unique features and benefits, and we just need to get our heads together and look at the details and figure that out. And I think if we select that project manager, part of their function early on would be to provide the board guidance on what we want to do here.
So the major difference between CM at risk and a construction manager is who holds the contracts or the contract or contracts for the project. CM at risk, you shift a lot of that administration off to a single CM or construction manager, where if you're buying their services, the school would enter into the different packages, contracts with each one of those. So there are definitely pros and cons associated with each one of those. And I think an important component of that is how you develop your plans and specification, your package. And because each one would be tailored a little bit differently for how you solicit those services or whether they're construction or management services. A lot of moving parts that need to be factored into that. But, it's very complicated decision.
If the project manager wasn't in the mix, I would definitely probably lean more heavily to CMA construction manager at risk, but with the project manager, I don't know that we would have to do that. We will move forward and know a little bit more, focusing this next month on how we want to move forward and procure that project manager.
Are you looking for any type of direction now, or just kind of breaking the ice cover with that?
Just breaking the ice on that and letting the board know that we're working on that. But feedback is welcome at all times throughout the month.
So moving on to old business, look at the faculty and student handbooks.
And I did not fill any feedback over the last month, so this is up for second read and for approval.
Does anybody have any comments? I know this has been a topic in the last few years. You've worked to streamline these.
Yeah, we're not all the way there to having a single student handbook. We talked, they look a lot more similar, so I think we're getting that at a better position. If we do a single handbook, it's going to, it appears that we will have to have some sections within that handbook for each building. So we took a step closer by there.
Any other questions, comments? If not, we need a motion.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the faculty student handbook for the 2021 school year as presented.
All in favor, say aye. Motion carries 6-0. Next topic is back to school planning due to COVID.
Mr. Corin said he's going to step out for this one. Actually, he's done a great job of getting together an initial draft for our return to school reentry response plan. And what I really want to impress upon the board is that this is absolutely going to be a fluid document. We have literally been inundated with recommendations, suggestions, public health orders, input. Rumor mill has been rampant around this topic, and we wanted to try to get this out as in a timely manner to try to calm some of the nerves, but we're also seeing the conversation continue to evolve and change. A couple of months ago, I know when I talked to the board, we were thinking that we would have kind of a sweet spot and that things would be calm. If we look back just a month ago in June, things were a little bit, seemed to be getting better and calming down, and now we're seeing some of those numbers spike. So the lull that we expected that we would have based on our look at the Spanish flu and that second peak as we went into the winter season, we're not seeing that luxury. So generally speaking, there's some general concepts. We're going to design, as you'll see in the document, protocols that try to touch on our significant operations. But what I would highlight to the board is we're moving forward with the intent to have as regular and normal of a physical environment as we can. We know that a lot of our parents work. They need and want their kids back in school. We know that there's a lot of value for our kids in having them back in school. So we are moving forward with the intent to have safeguards that are, make sure I get this right. Kind of use some acronyms in here, but we're going to go with the PAIR model, which is practical, attainable, impactful, and reasonable. If you look at a lot of the recommendations that have been shared from multiple agencies, a lot of them are practical, a lot of them are attainable, a lot of them are going to make a tremendous impact, and a lot of them aren't reasonable in scope. So as we frame up our physical environment, we're going to try to do things that we know make sense, that we know make an impact, something that we can actually attain and that are reasonable in scope. We don't want the solution to be worse than the problem. But we also want to be, we don't want to completely turn a blind eye and act like this issue is behind us or doesn't exist, because we know it absolutely does. So along with that physical environment, we're also going to offer parents the option, if they're not comfortable with what we communicate and what we offer in our physical environment, we will offer virtual options. If parents want to keep their children in virtual settings, we can absolutely do that. And you think about, if you have stay-at-home parents in the home, where that is convenient, it's not a major disruption for that household, that virtual program may be the absolute best thing, all things considered. But we know that it's probably not the best thing for all kids. So that's something that we've introduced early on as a district, because we are one of the 1 through 12. We have the opportunity to do that. And that dual pronged approach has actually been picked up by a lot of districts, some of which are really scrambling because it's going to be more difficult for them to get ready to deliver that. So the two-pronged approach will be reasonably restrictive, as normal as possible physical environment, and then the virtual environment. We have a variety of ways that we are going to roll out that virtual program. The other thing that I would point out, and this is something that we're still really arm wrestling on, is extracurricular activities versus our normal day. And we want to be consistent as a district on how we handle those, but it's also important for the board to understand that extracurricular activities, the board has no obligation to provide those, and to students it's 100% voluntary. Students are choosing and parents are choosing if their children participate in extracurriculars. That's their choice, and we're doing that with a waiver that students have to sign that acknowledges that there is inherent risk with those sports and activities. We usually, we have inherent risk with sports absent of COVID. You have injuries, you have, things that happen through the nature of those activities. There is inherent risk involved in participating in those sports. There's also now inherent risk involved in participating in those sports related to COVID. So we got to keep those separate. On the school side, we are mandated to provide a fair and appropriate public education, and we are going to frame those parameters to the best of our abilities to enhance safety as best we can. On the sports side, the risk is going to be assumed partially by the district and partially by the participants. The second layer of that is visitors to our schools and spectators. And I know, I guess I could use the base as a good example. The base over the during COVID has had the opportunity to restrict access onto the base. The school district also has the opportunity to restrict access into our buildings and at our activities. The difference is I don't know that we want to do that in the absence of a public health order requiring us to do it. That's something we're really wrestling with. And then also, is there a difference that we should consider as it relates to visitors to school during the academic day versus visitors to school for sporting events? We know we absolutely know that the more people we have in our spaces, it increases the risk. But we also know that, at the end of the day, we live in a free country where people have the opportunity to make free will choices and do so mindfully. So that's something we are really struggling with on what our responsibility is, what the Johnson County Health Department's responsibility is regarding adult access to our facilities. So one thing I would definitely caution the board on is this is we talked about barbecue as a hot topic tonight. This is a hot button item, and I'll just quit. But this is definitely a hot topic, emotionally charged item. My perception is there's probably as much or more political and emotional charge on this item more than logical data analysis and, evaluation. So I would caution the board that whatever decisions I end up recommending or that we end up making, just be prepared that it will be scrutinized, and we're going to have to try to have broad shoulders and thick skin on this, to do our best to make decisions that we feel are in the best interest of our students, our parents, our community. So it's going to be an interesting way forward. We think we have a pretty good start in the document. We continue to add. As of about 4:30 this afternoon, we know that Misha is now requiring some new return to play protocols, and we're going to continue to modify this as we move forward. When we return to school, we will get this communicated out. We'll get an initial plan here in the next week or so out to parents and faculty, fill some feedback, modify, and then we'll run with this in August. But it's going to be interesting. Transportation is another issue that there's a lot of different ideas from assigned seats to loading the buses back to front. But at the end of the day, there's going to be some exposure. The face masks are another one. We know we're under a public health order to wear those masks as it's written in any public space. But we know we're seeing a lot of differences of opinion on that as well. So we'll do our best to make good decisions on this, and hopefully our community will embrace it and continue to work with us as respectful, mutual partners in moving through this issue. If the board feels any feedback, any major concerns, please let me know. I'm not always the first to hear those, sometimes the last, but as our community elected representatives, channel those folks to me directly or relay those messages, and please keep me informed on what you're hearing.
Well, thank you for all the work, but I don't think we're gonna come up with a plan that's gonna please everybody, and, you just hope that people have, they understand what a hard decision it is, and what, you've been doing this since March, pretty much trying to plan on how to come back to school. And, just hope that people understand that and work together.
We hope so, and how we do those shutdowns when we have our confirmed cases is going to be another sticking point. We're going to have a partial shutdown all the way through another full shutdown. But I think if we do move down that line, we need to be prepared to reopen too. So unlike the spring where once we shut down, that spike was still moving up and there was a lot of unknown. I think what we'll see now is potential intermittent partial shutdowns if we have isolated cases that we can contact trace and try to make some good decisions there through Warrensburg School District this week shut down all of their sports activities because of an increased number of COVID cases. So they will reopen those. We assume soon, but they're going to do a shutdown period. We know Versailles did the same thing last week, actually 2 weeks ago, and they're now reopened. So we're going to see a lot of that, and then anytime you see those things, there's a rumor mill that surrounds that, and we'll try to do our best to get out that information as a reference, but we also should expect a rumor mill. I got a call from a teacher that heard we were starting school on August 1st. Another call from a teacher that we had canceled all extracurricular activities for the year, and that's just the nature of this situation. But none of those are true.
How many agencies or offices in Richmond shows that? Obviously, the governor, Governor Farley, is there any
And that's another piece that we were talking about. We were looking at, we looked at lots of plans, and I know there was a reference in one of the plans that we looked at regarding like the county health office limiting occupancy numbers, like they do in the retail sectors and other places, and that was kind of a new concept for us. Right now, our plan does not include rotating days of attendance to reduce the numbers in the building. We've assessed that as, when we talk about reasonable in scope and how that meets the needs of working families, it's not something that we automatically recommend, but I think the county health department could have the authority to limit capacities, which would significantly change our approach. But as I understand it, the governor can impose those at the state level, and then it comes down to the county level. The public health order that came out on the face masks came from the county, and I assessed it as an alternative to social distancing, or in addition to social distancing. But that wasn't in the specific language. Then we had the language of that public health order. We started hearing that there had been other information shared regarding sports and the mask and how you wear these during rigorous exercise. That was not specifically written in the health order, but we requested additional guidance in writing, received that, and we sent that last minute over to parents. So, as I understand it, it would be two agencies, the state or the local county, or the board, or us as a local entity. Do you have any intel on that, Dallas?
I don't.
We will try to, and I talked to Colonel Finer just briefly, but we're going to try to stay lockstep with the base and make sure that we, obviously for Wyman Elementary, we will be in 100% alignment with any protocols on base. Off base, we're going to try to stay in alignment, even if protocols don't line up.
Yeah, we're plugged into the Johnson County and the monitor state. And of course, we advance the Little Strike and a lot of other agencies as well. So we try to mesh that all together as best as we can. Yeah, definitely with the elementary school on base, so far as we still locked up before we know, so I know we do that.
That building really lends itself pretty well to the situation with the wide corridors and the way that you can move circularly through that building, and it's segregated off. So I think we're in pretty good shape there compared to some of our other spaces. Big cafeteria, big gymnasium, tiny parking lot that we are addressing at some point. That's all I have right now. Just we will continue to modify this, look for this to be communicated out, and I think there will be a lot of people that will want to shoot bolts through this, and hopefully through that process it'll get a little bit better.
I appreciate that. I think all the board members know what the situation the district's in, and hopefully there won't be too many Monday morning quarterbacks and experts. So you learn here too. So good luck. Thanks.
I do suppose that all the disinfecting type stuff regarding the purchase of little showman just down the road, or I know that's a guess.
No, we actually did an initial purchase on some spray sanitizers, and then we loaded up on hand sanitizer and installed some new devices. I know Mrs. Brandt is looking at some of our signage that we'll have ready to go for back to school. And we ended up doing a second round of purchases for a different type of machine that in a way I think it ionizes the disinfectant It was a little pricey, and you guys will see that in the upcoming building cycles. But it really makes the use of the product more economical because product accessibility was our big concern. But there were a lot of districts that had an opportunity to look at this new technology. We jumped on board with that and felt like it was a overall pretty good investment. But hard to say. We're looking at face masks as well. We have ordered some initially for graduation that will be in place for this Saturday. We're kicking back and forth whether or not we will provide face masks to students. Certainly we will have those available for any student that can't otherwise have access to those. But as of right now, we haven't made a decision on whether or not we'll provide those to all students. We know that the care and clean, we're going to leave that with the parents' responsibility to try to sanitize those unless we determine again that that's not occurring, and we'll step in and provide supports there. But we think we'll be spraying a lot of sanitizer every single day in lots of places. So I had to bite my lip when we made that purchase, but I think it was the right thing to do. There's another detail that doesn't come to mind right now that we were talking about earlier today on equipment. I think it was outdoor dining tables and spaces in mind as a possible alternative. That lends itself pretty well at the high school and frankly at the middle school, not so much at our elementary buildings.
There's nothing else, we can move on. Moving on to graduation procedures.
Yep, just this information I think was provided back in the spring, but this is an outline for commencement senior procedures that were communicated. We do have that set for this Saturday at July 18th at 7:30 p.m. at Panther Stadium. We also have UCM reserved in case of poor weather. And we can define poor weather a variety of different ways. I know we did a survey regarding the location on that and received quite a bit of feedback on the narrative side that seniors and their families wanted to have this event on our home turf, and that's how it's been planned. We know it's going to be hot, so we've planned the water, we planned some emergency response as needed or if needed. But the board could definitely direct me to hold that at UCM and the air conditioning, and that wouldn't break my heart. Logically, I think that's probably the right choice. From the heart, though, and with the feedback of our families and all they've been through, we've aligned it to have it here on the home turf. So. Either way we slice that, I think there are pros and cons. Hopefully, Mother Nature will share some grace this Saturday evening.
Anybody have any strong comments that they would like to share? So I think we'll be in touch with the board members, give a report time. It's going to be hot, so we'll get those as close to the time and put some details out for the next year. Okay.
We typically suit up on that. I think we might want to consider, depending on the circumstances, and if we stay outside of the stadium, we might consider dropping the jackets at least and going with a white shirt. That would be quite a bit cooler for everybody. So I think that's if you guys want to jacket up, I'll be happy to do that as well. We do have the commencement arrangement set up to allow social distancing among for 100% of the ceremony. We'll do a pass of the diploma, which should be about the closest portion of the ceremony, but the social distancing among the families and the attendees outside of the commencement proceedings. That is going to be again up to those attendees to socially distance. As we understand it, the face masks are supposed to be worn in public unless we can socially distance. We provided the option to the students. If they don't want to wear them, we've set up the procedures in a way that they won't have to, but they certainly can. And then with the families, as I understand it, those family units that have otherwise been exposed to each other would not have to socially distance from themselves or wear the masks. Everybody else would need to, and we're leaving that to the responsibility of those attendees to socially distance themselves. We also have arranged the ceremony in a way that will allow lawn chair seating on the track to try to socially distance a little bit better there, and then possibly on the field partially. So that's kind of the plan at this time, and it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Are we gonna be 6 feet apart so we don't have to wear masks?
Yes, we will.
I for one, am on board with not having to wear the suit jacket. I know you have heard me complain in the past. I don't want to hear commencement speakers get up there for an hour and a half. I mean, Mr. Dwayne or whoever did it a 3 years ago was 10 minutes, and I was very pleased with that.
You'll be happy to hear he's going to be the speaker again, and we usually run about an hour 5. I would say will be an hour 10, hour 15.
Well, I know for the most part, a lot of these people in this room probably have sat and listened to commencement speakers for an hour or even this long. And by the time it was over, they wanted to shoot that person. So, yeah, I'm just putting it out there. I did not remember what they said for a minute.
We'll reserve all of our time for slow cooking or barbecue, and we'll rest it out for commencement. That may not get old. I don't know. It might.
So I think the one vote to shift the code to, I think, as far as I'm concerned, make a decision, let us know what you expect of us in that situation.
I think it's reasonable to check with the white shirts, tie. And then Mrs. Davis can, I'm sure she can move it over to the road.
Last item there is just a placeholder. We'll continue to refine this, whether it actually shows up on our agenda or communications from us to kind of make sure that we aren't getting items where you guys have strong feedback on individual items for time to at least an opportunity throughout the month to get those on the official agenda and get those taken care of. So we'll keep this running. Like I said, whether it's actual line item here or something that we communicate offline, and you guys provide feedback to Dr. Brewer. So we'll get those things out for the next few months. Okay. With that, I think we're ready to adjourn the public session. We get a motion and just need a second. All second, by roll call vote.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0. We'll take 10 minutes and